I'm 29 years old, and I have a younger brother named Tyler who's 26. We used to be really close growing up, but our parents always kind of favored him. He was the golden child who could do no wrong, while I was just the responsible older brother, expected to handle everything and take care of everyone. My parents are both in their early 60s now. My dad works construction when he can find jobs, and my mum has been a waitress at the same diner for about 15 years. We're not wealthy by any means, but we managed okay. When I was younger, Tyler was always the charming, good-looking type who could talk his way out of anything. But he's never been good with money or holding down a steady job. Since high school, he's probably had around 20 different jobs, getting fired from most of them for skipping work or having attitude issues with his bosses. Still, my parents always made excuses for him, saying he was just trying to find his path in life. Meanwhile, I worked 2 jobs through college, graduated with a business degree, and landed a decent job right after graduation. When I was 26, I met Olivia at a friend's birthday party. She was 24, worked as a nurse, and seemed really sweet and down to earth. We hit it off immediately and started dating seriously pretty fast. She got along great with my family, which was important to me because family has always been a big deal. In our house, my parents loved her and said she was perfect for me. Tyler seemed to like her too. They would joke around and tease each other, but I thought it was just normal sibling-in-law stuff. Olivia and I got engaged after dating for about 2 years. We were both ready to settle down and start our lives together, and everything seemed perfect. We began planning the wedding right away because we wanted to get married the following summer. The problem was money. Olivia's parents had both passed away when she was younger, and she was raised by her grandmother, who was on a fixed income, so there wouldn't be any help from her side. My parents said they wanted to contribute but could only afford maybe $1,000, which I completely understood. So Olivia and I decided we would save up for the wedding ourselves. We both started setting aside money every month, and I took on some freelance work on weekends to bring in extra cash. We opened a joint savings account specifically for wedding expenses, and we were disciplined about adding to it regularly. It felt good to be working toward this goal together and watching the balance grow. Around this time, my family's situation started getting more complicated. Tyler had gotten fired from another job and was living with my parents again, which was putting a strain on their finances. My dad's work was slowing down because of some back issues, and they were struggling to make ends meet. I felt really guilty because I was doing okay financially while they were having a hard time, so I started helping them out here and there, buying groceries when I came over for dinner, or slipping my mum some cash when I knew they were behind on bills. Over several months, I probably gave them a couple $1,000s, but I didn't mind because they're my parents and I love them. Olivia knew I was helping them and was totally supportive. Even though it meant we couldn't save for the wedding as fast as we planned, Tyler knew I was helping to, and he began asking me for money directly, sometimes, usually small amounts, like $50 or $100 for gas or food. He always promised to pay me back. I knew he probably wouldn't, but I helped him anyway because he's my brother and I didn't want him to struggle. Olivia wasn't thrilled about me giving Tyler money because she said he needed to learn to be responsible for himself. But she didn't make a big deal out of it. The strange thing was that even though Tyler was supposedly broke and unemployed, he seemed to always have money to go out and buy things. He'd show up to family dinners with new clothes or talk about going to concerts or bars with his friends. When I asked him about it, he'd say he was just being careful with his money, or that friends were covering costs. Around this time, I noticed Olivia was acting a little different too. She seemed more distant sometimes and would get weird about her phone, like she was hiding something. She started working more overtime shifts at the hospital, which I thought was great because it meant more money for us, but it also meant I was seeing her less. When I tried to make plans with her, she'd often say she was too tired from work, or that she had already made plans with her girlfriends. I also noticed she wasn't contributing as much to our wedding fund as she used to. When I asked her about it, she said the overtime shifts were wearing her down and that she'd had some unexpected expenses come up. She seemed stressed about it, so I didn't push the issue. I just started putting in more money myself to cover the difference. What really started bothering me was that Tyler seemed to know a lot about Olivia's work schedule and what she was doing. If I mentioned Olivia was working late, Tyler would say something like, "Oh yeah, she mentioned that." Or if I said Olivia was going out with friends, Tyler would know which friends she was with. At first, I thought maybe they were just getting closer as future in-laws, which seemed nice. But something about it felt off. One day, I came home early from work because I was feeling sick, and I found Tyler sitting in my living room. This was strange because I hadn't given him a key, and Olivia wasn't supposed to be home for hours. When I asked him what he was doing there, he said Olivia had let him in earlier because he needed to use the bathroom, and then he'd fallen asleep on the couch. It sounded like a reasonable explanation, but something about the whole situation felt wrong. I started paying more attention after that, and I noticed Tyler's car was parked near my apartment complex more often than it should have been. When I asked Olivia about it, she said she'd run into him a few times when she was coming or going, and they'd chatted, but that was all. Again, it seemed reasonable, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The final straw came about 6 months before our wedding was supposed to happen. I had been putting extra money into our wedding account because we were close to having enough for the venue deposit, and I was excited to finally book everything. Checked our balance online. I saw several large withdrawals over the past few months that I didn't remember making. I called the bank and found out the withdrawals had been made using Olivia's debit card. When I confronted her about it, she got really defensive and said she'd had some family emergencies she hadn't wanted to worry me with. She said her grandmother needed help with medical bills and she had to take money from our wedding fund to help her. I felt terrible for doubting her and apologized for questioning her about it. I even offered to call her grandmother to see if there was anything else we could do to help. But Olivia got upset and said her grandmother was embarrassed about needing help and didn't want anyone else to know about her financial problems. Looking back, this should have been a huge red flag, but I loved Olivia and trusted her, so I believed what she was telling me. But then I started noticing that Tyler suddenly seemed to have more money again. He'd moved out of my parents' house into his own apartment. He had a new car, and he was always talking about expensive things he was buying or places he was going. When I asked him how he was affording all this without a job, he said he'd been doing some cash work for a friend's company and business was good. I wanted to believe him, but something about the timing felt too coincidental. Olivia was taking money out of our wedding fund for family emergencies. At the same time, Tyler was suddenly flush with cash. I started feeling paranoid and guilty for even thinking what I was thinking, but I couldn't get it out of my head. So here's where the current situation started. Last month, I decided to surprise Olivia by planning a romantic weekend getaway for us. I'd been working a lot, and I felt like we hadn't been connecting much lately. So I thought it would be good for us to spend some quality time together. I booked a nice hotel about 2 hours away and planned to surprise her when she got home from her shift on Friday night. But when Friday came, Olivia texted me saying she had to work a double shift and wouldn't be home until Saturday morning. I was disappointed, but understood that work comes first, especially since we needed the money. I decided to just spend the evening at home and maybe surprise her with the trip idea on Saturday instead. Around 10 p.m., I was feeling restless and decided to go for a drive to clear my head. I wasn't planning to go anywhere specific, but I found myself driving toward the hospital where Olivia works. I told myself I was just going to see if her car was in the parking lot, just because I missed her and wanted to feel connected to her somehow. But when I got to the hospital, Olivia's car wasn't there. I drove around the parking lot twice to make sure I hadn't missed it. But it definitely wasn't. I started to panic and wondered if something had happened to her. Maybe she'd been called to a different location, or her car was in the shop, and someone had given her a ride. I sat in the parking lot for about 20 minutes, trying to figure out what to do. I didn't want to call her, because it seemed like I was checking up on her, but I was genuinely worried. Finally, I decided to drive home and wait for her to contact me. On my way back to my apartment, I took a route that went past Tyler's new place. I wasn't planning to stop or anything. I was just driving and thinking, not really paying attention to where I was going. But as I drove past his building, I saw Olivia's car parked outside. My heart just sank. I pulled over and sat there staring at her car, trying to come up with any reasonable explanation for why it would be there. Maybe Tyler was having some kind of emergency and Olivia had gone to help him. Maybe her car had broken down nearby and she'd called him for help. But deep down, I knew. I think I'd known for months. But I'd been trying to convince myself I was being paranoid and jealous for no reason. I sat in my car for probably an hour, just staring at Olivia's car and trying to decide what to do. Finally, I decided to go home and wait. If Olivia was really working a double shift like she said, she'd be getting off around 6 a.m. and home by 7. If she was doing what I thought she was, then she'd probably come home sometime during the night with some excuse about getting off early. Olivia came home around 2 a.m. She was trying to be quiet, but I was awake waiting for her. When she came into the bedroom, I asked how work had been. She said it was really busy and they'd let her leave a few hours early since things had calmed down. I asked if anything interesting had happened, and she just said, "No, same old stuff." I wanted to confront her right then, but I realized I needed to be smarter about this. If I was wrong, I'd be destroying my relationship and family over nothing. But if I was right, I needed proof before saying anything. Update 1. It's been 2 weeks. A lot of people asked for an update, so here's what happened after I made that post. I decided I needed concrete proof before confronting Olivia and Tyler. So I did some things I'm not proud of, but felt like I had to do. First, I started keeping track of Olivia's work schedule more carefully. I called the hospital a few times, pretending to be delivering flowers or food to her, and I found out she wasn't working nearly as many shifts as she told me. The times she said she was working doubles or extra shifts, she often wasn't scheduled at all. I also started watching our joint bank account more closely. I set up alerts to notify me every time money was withdrawn and began screenshotting transaction history. What I found was Olivia was regularly withdrawing cash, usually between $200 and $500, always from ATMs near Tyler's apartment or places they apparently visited together. What really shocked me was when I checked our wedding fund account and realized we were missing almost $3,000. We should have had about $12,000 saved by then, but only about $9,000 was left. Looking through the transactions, there were many withdrawals I definitely hadn't made, and they'd been happening for weeks. I was furious and heartbroken, but I still wanted to be absolutely sure before doing anything. So I decided to follow them. I know how crazy that sounds, and I'm not proud of it. But I felt like I was losing my mind and needed to know the truth. The next time Olivia told me she was working late, I waited until she left and followed her. She didn't go to the hospital. She went straight to Tyler's apartment and stayed there for hours. I sat in my car, feeling sick to my stomach. But it gets worse. While I was sitting there, I saw my mom's car pull up. My mom got out and went up to Tyler's apartment too. She stayed for about an hour, and when she came back out, Tyler walked her to her car, and they hugged like they were saying goodbye after a nice visit. That's when I realized my parents knew what was going on. My mom wasn't surprised to see Olivia's car there, and Tyler wasn't trying to hide anything from her. They were all in on it, and I was the only one who didn't know. I went home and didn't sleep at all that night. I kept thinking about all the times my parents told me how perfect Olivia was for me. All the times they encouraged our relationship. All the times they acted like they were so happy about our engagement. They had been lying to my face for months while my brother and my fiancée were screwing behind my back and stealing money from our wedding fund. The next morning, I decided I was done playing games. I called Olivia and told her we needed to talk. When she got home from work, she said she was actually going to be working late again. And I just said, "Fine, we'll talk tomorrow then." But I knew she wasn't going to work. She was going to Tyler's place again. So I drove over to Tyler's apartment in the middle of the day when I knew Olivia would be there. I didn't knock or anything. I just used the spare key that Tyler had given me and started recording. I walked right into his bedroom and found them together. I'm not going to go into details about what I saw, but it was exactly what I expected, and it still felt like getting punched in the stomach. They both started scrambling and trying to explain, but I just turned around and walked out. I couldn't even look at them. I went straight to the bank and closed our joint accounts. I took out all the money left in our wedding fund, which, like I said, was only about $9,000 of the $12,000 we should have had. Then I went home and started packing Olivia's stuff. Olivia came home a few hours later, started crying, apologizing, and saying it wasn't what it looked like. She said she and Tyler had just been supporting each other through some tough times, and things had gotten complicated, but she loved me and wanted to work things out. I told her she had until the end of the week to get all her things out of my apartment. Then I called my parents and told them I knew everything. My mum started crying and apologizing, but said Tyler begged them not to tell me because he was planning to end things with Olivia and tell me himself. She said they didn't want to hurt me if it was just going to be a mistake that was over anyway. I told them I didn't want to hear their excuses and that I was done with all of them. I said I never wanted to see any of them again and that they were all dead to me. My dad got on the phone and started yelling at me, saying I was being dramatic and that family is family and we could work things out. I hung up on him. That was 2 weeks ago, and I haven't spoken to any of them since. I know some people think I was too harsh, but I just couldn't get past the betrayal. It wasn't just that Olivia cheated on me or even that Tyler betrayed. It was that my parents knew about it and lied to my face for months, while I was planning to marry someone who was sleeping with my brother and using the money we'd saved for our wedding. Update 2. Posting a small update to get advice. Again, like last time. About 6 months ago, things apparently started going bad for all of them. Tyler lost his apartment since he had no money and had to move back in with my parents. Olivia got fired from her job at the hospital for some kind of policy not sure what. My dad's health problems worsened, and he can't work construction anymore. My mum's diner, where she used to work, closed down because of COVID, and she's been struggling to find another job. They've been trying to contact me through mutual friends and extended family. They've sent letters to my apartment, shown up at my work, and even contacted some of my friends trying to get them to talk to me. The message is always the same. They're sorry for what they did, they want to make things right, and they need help. Last week, my aunt called me and said my parents are probably going to lose their house because they can't make the mortgage payments. She said they're both too proud to ask me directly but hope I'll help, because I'm the only one in the family doing well financially. She said Tyler and Olivia aren't together anymore and that everyone realizes what a mistake the whole thing was. I told my aunt that I'm sorry my parents are struggling, but it's not my problem. I said they made their choice when they decided to lie to me and help my brother steal from me. And now they have to live with the consequences. She said I was being cold and that they're my parents and I should help them regardless of what happened. The thing is, I've been doing really well for myself since I cut them all off. I've been dating someone new, and things are going great with her. I'm happier than I've been in years, and I don't miss the drama and stress that my family always brought into my life. I don't know, am I being too cold? Update 3. After my last post, I decided I was going to stick to my boundaries and not help my family. But they've been escalating their attempts to get me to contact them, and it's starting to affect my life in ways I didn't expect. Then Tyler started leaving voicemails on my work phone. I don't know how he got the number, but he was calling and leaving these long messages about how sorry he was, how he'd made a terrible mistake and ruined everything. He was crying in some of the messages and talking about how he lost the best brother he'd ever had and didn't know how to live with what he'd done. The voicemails were really disturbing, because Tyler sounded like he was having some kind of mental breakdown. He talked about how he never deserved Olivia's love or my forgiveness and wished he could go back and change everything. In one message, he said he'd been thinking about hurting himself because he couldn't stand the guilt anymore. I want to be clear that I don't think Tyler was actually suicidal. I think he was trying to manipulate me into feeling sorry for him. But the messages were still really upsetting to listen to. and I worried he might actually do something reckless. So I called my aunt and told her about the voicemails. I said if Tyler was really having thoughts of hurting himself, then someone needed to get him professional help, but it wasn't going to be me. She said she'd talked to my parents about it, and the voicemails stopped after that. But then, Olivia started contacting my new girlfriend. I don't know how she found out who I was dating or how she got her contact information, but she began messaging her on social media and texting her. My girlfriend showed me some of the messages, and they were really weird and manipulative. Olivia was telling my girlfriend that she needed to convince me to forgive my family because they were all suffering and it was partially my fault. She said I was a good person but could be stubborn and vindictive when hurt, and that my girlfriend needed to help me see that holding grudges was only hurting everyone involved. She also said some nasty things about how my new relationship was just me trying to replace her, and that I'd never be able to trust anyone else because of what she'd done to me. She said, my girlfriend should be careful because I have trust issues now and would probably end up being controlling and suspicious in all my future relationships. My girlfriend was really upset about the messages because she felt Olivia was trying to sabotage our relationship. She asked if I wanted her to respond to Olivia or block her, and I told her to just block her on everything and not engage at all. But the fact that Olivia was trying to interfere with my new relationship made me angrier than anything else they'd done. It was like she couldn't stand that I was moving on and being happy without her, so she was trying to ruin that too. Around this time, I found out more details about why Olivia had gotten fired from the hospital. Apparently, she'd been stealing medications and selling them. One of my friends who works in healthcare told me Olivia had been caught taking painkillers and other controlled substances from the pharmacy, and there was an investigation into how long it had been going on. This explained a lot about where some of our wedding fund money had gone. I'd assumed Olivia was just giving the money to Tyler, but apparently she'd also been using it to support a drug habit I didn't even know she had. The more I learned about what had really been going on, the more I realized the person I thought I was in love with had never really existed. That's when I decided to write them a letter. I know a lot of people in the comments suggested this, and I finally felt ready to put my thoughts down on paper. I spent several days writing and rewriting it, trying to make sure I was clear about why I'd made the decision to cut them off, and why I wasn't going to change my mind. In the letter, I explained this wasn't about me being unable to forgive cheating, and it wasn't about me being too proud to help family members who were struggling. I said it was about the fact that they had all betrayed my trust in the deepest way possible, and had shown me that their loyalty was not with me when it mattered most. I wrote that when Olivia was stealing our wedding money to support her drug habit and her affair with Tyler, they could have told me and saved me from months of planning a wedding to someone who was actively deceiving me. When Tyler was using money that was supposed to be for my future to fund his lifestyle and his relationship with my fiancée, they could have told me and saved me from continuing to loan him money that I thought was helping him get back on his feet. I said their choice to protect Tyler and Olivia instead of protecting me had shown me exactly where I stood in their priorities, and that I couldn't have a relationship with people who had proven they would lie to me and watch me be hurt, rather than do the right thing. I also wrote that I was not responsible for fixing the consequences of their choices. I said they were adults who had made decisions about how to handle a difficult situation, and those decisions had led to outcomes they now had to live with. I said I was not going to sacrifice my own well-being and happiness to rescue them from problems they had contributed to creating. Finally, I wrote that I was happy and healthy, building a good life for myself, and I was not going to let them destroy that by continuing to try to force their way back into my life. I said if they really loved me and wanted what was best for me, they would respect my decision and leave me alone. I mailed the letter to my parents' house and sent copies to Tyler and my aunt via email. I also included a note saying this was my final communication with them and that any further attempts to contact me or my girlfriend would be considered harassment and I would take legal action. It's been about a week since I sent the letters, and so far they seem to have gotten the message. I haven't heard from any of them, and my girlfriend hasn't received any more messages from Olivia. I'm hoping this is finally the end of it, but I'm also prepared to get a restraining order. If they start trying to contact me again, discovered my fiancée was sleeping with my brother using our wedding fund money while my parents knew about it. So I left her and cut them all off. I'm 29 male, with a younger brother, Tyler, who's 26. We used to be really close growing up, but our parents always kind of favored him. He was the golden child who could do no wrong, and I was just the responsible older brother expected to handle everything and take care of everyone. My parents are both in their early 60s now. My dad works construction when he can find jobs, and my mum has been a waitress at the same diner for about 15 years. We're not rich by any means, but we got by okay.